Hello friends! Welcome to Daily Sourdough. Today I'm going to teach you how to make sourdough pie crust. If you feel like you can't make a good pie crust, today that is going to change because sourdough pie crust always turns out flaky and delicious. So let's get started learning how to make sourdough pie crust. First, take 2 cups of flour, and that's all-purpose flour. Then add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of butter. And you'll want to use cold butter and cut that butter into little cubes. You can also use a food processor if you want, because you're going to be cutting that butter into your flour. And I just use a pastry cutter, but a food processor works really well. Just work that butter into the flour until it resembles coarse crumbs and is just kind of crumbly looking. And make sure your butter is really cold. You're not mashing the butter. You can work it into the flour and it stays in little chunks. Once you have your butter cut into the flour, add a tablespoon of sugar and then work it just a couple more minutes. Sourdough pie crust is a great recipe to use if your starter has been sitting in the refrigerator for a while and it hasn't been fed, or if you have extra sourdough starter. You don't need to feed it first, and in fact you can just take it right out of the refrigerator and put it right into your bowl. So add 1 cup of sourdough starter, and it can be fed or unfed. Just mix it until all the flour is incorporated and it doesn't look dry anymore. Then mix it with your hands just until everything is mixed in and it comes to a ball. You can use a food processor to do this whole process and just pulse it. After you've kneaded your pie crust into a ball with your hand, cover it with plastic and then put it in the refrigerator for 8 to 10 hours or overnight. I'm going to put it in overnight, so I'll see you tomorrow. My sourdough pie crust has been in the refrigerator overnight, so I'm ready to make my pie. First, flour your counter really heavily, then cut your dough in half. This is enough dough to make a double crusted pie or 2 pies with a single crust. And since your dough is very stiff and cold, it's going to take some work to roll it out. Make sure your counter is heavily floured and then continue turning the dough so that it doesn't stick to the counter. And then flour it some more and turn. That way you'll get an even circle and your crust won't stick to the counter. If your dough is cracking while you're rolling it out, then it means it's still too cold, so just let it sit a couple more minutes. An easy way to transfer your dough to your pie dish is to roll it around your rolling pin, then lift it up and lay it down. Then gently press it to fill your pie dish and work that dough into the corners, into the side of your pie dish. And see, the dough is very soft and tender and easy to work. The reason you tuck your edges under is to give it a more even and finished edge. Then just use your fingers and your thumb to flute the edges and make any pattern you want, whatever your favorite pattern is. Make sure your pie crust hangs over the edge of your pie dish just a little bit because it's going to shrink somewhat. So take a fork and prick your crust all the way around the edges and along the bottom. This is how to prepare the crust for a 1 crust pie, such as a fruit pie. Now it's ready to go in the oven at 425 for 10 minutes. Then reduce your temperature to 325 for another 15 to 20 minutes, just until the crust on the bottom is a golden brown. After your crust has been baking for 10 minutes, you can brush the crust with cream, and that will give it a nice shine. Beautiful golden color to it. Now reduce your temperature to 325 and bake it for another 10 or 15 minutes until your crust is a golden brown. There you have it, friends. Flaky, tender sourdough pie crust. It's easy to make and it's really easy to work with. And be sure and subscribe because I have videos on how I made the apple pie filling and the strawberry pie filling coming up on Daily Sourdough.